This video is brought to you by Squarespace. I painted over 100 miniatures this year, and I played more games with those miniatures than in any year in my life, I believe. So today, I thought it might be fun to show you every single miniature I painted in 2025, tell you a little bit about the games I played with those miniatures, as well as my plans for 2026. Part 1. The Orcs. Before 2025 even started, I knew I wanted to try something a little bit different this year. As I finally now had a consistent gaming group, I suddenly had the goal of painting miniatures for an army that would actually be used on the tabletop relatively soon. So because my friends wanted to play Warhammer 40k, I decided that I would try to paint up an orc army to play with them. This was an army that I had already painted a small amount of models for over the years, so back in October of 2024, I set the goal of painting an entire orc army before the end of October 2025. And surprisingly, I basically achieved this goal. Technically, my goal was a 2,000 point orc army, and I only ended up with around 1,300 points of orcs fully painted. But as it turns out, 1,000 points is totally fine for a fun game of Warhammer 40k. So throughout the year, I managed to paint an absolute ton of orcs and goblins, all before the end of October, all the way from basic orc boys to grot snipers converted from the new Rattling sniper kits. I painted some kit-bashed vehicles for the first time. I painted a unit of orc breakup boys, as well as an absolute ton of orc stuff sent over by Cromlech. Thanks again, guys, for sending me all this fun orc stuff to paint. I've still got some Cromlech stuff to paint in 2026. So altogether, I finished painting 50 orc models for my orc army this year, as well as 9 pieces of orc scatter terrain. So 59 pieces total, which I think may be a new record for me personally, as far as painting a sheer number of models for a single army in a single year. I also got at least 6 games in with my orc army, playing Warhammer 40k, which was also a new experience for me. That's more games of Warhammer I've played in any year of my life, I think. And my thoughts on the game system are pretty much what they were a few months ago when I made that Crusade video. It's a good enough game system, it does what it's supposed to do. Could it be better? Sure, but at least it's a game we can all agree on to play. It's easy to get friends to play Warhammer 40k rather than a more esoteric game they might not have heard of. So if you are thinking of getting into Warhammer 40k, would I recommend it? Absolutely not. Do not get into Warhammer 40k right now. And instead, you should wait for next summer when 11th edition comes out and you can get all the new starter sets and start fresh with a set of new rules. I would also say that I especially recommend orcs as a good starting army. Their rules are relatively simple, and it's really easy to kit bash the units out of other models or toys that you might already own. In fact, I think about 80% of the orc models that I painted this year were kit bashed in some way, whether it's something I made from scratch from a different model or just a model that I modified a little bit. So it's an especially fun army to play if you like to kit bash, but again, it probably makes sense to wait until next summer if you're thinking of starting an orc army, as it will then become a very cheap army to collect, presumably if they're in the starter set, like all the rumors are saying. I also played a single game of Space Gits this year, which is a fun dexterity, quick, fun game you can play with your existing orc models. Overall, I thought it was quite fun, especially if you're thinking of it more like a Jenga analog than a serious wargame analog. It's a very funny, jokey game. It's fun as sort of a warm-up, I would say, before you play a larger game. It's nice that it only takes 45 minutes to play, or a bit under an hour to play. And overall, I think it's just a beautiful art project and rulebook. Highly recommend picking it up if you get a chance and you like orcs. Part 2, The Demon Princess of Slaanesh. To celebrate the release of all of the Emperor's Children stuff coming out this year, I thought I would do a quick painting guide using a model that I already owned. This really cool Daemon Prince model that I got a while back as part of an Age of Sigmar combo box. This ended up being a super fun project to paint. I feel like I really pushed myself in a lot of areas to get a cooler result than I might have usually. And later in the month, when bills were tight, I decided to just put this model up for sale on my website because I didn't think I would probably use her in any actual games on the tabletop. I wasn't really expecting it to sell that quickly, but it sold pretty much immediately after I put it up, I guess because of the interest in Emperor's Children at the time. And that was a cool experience that I had this year too. I don't usually do commission painting, but it was fun to paint something, put a lot of effort into it, and then have it go to the collection of someone who's going to use it. So highly recommend that if you've never done that before as well. Try painting something and selling it. It's an interesting feeling. Part 3, the big boat. The absolute largest model that I painted this year, and probably the biggest model in my collection overall, was this massive pirate ship that Dungeons & Lasers sent me from their crowdfunding campaign earlier this year. And while I didn't have time to fully paint up this model with all the details I might have liked, I did have a lot of fun just even building it. It was a lot of fun to build, and it was a lot of fun to paint even in the sort of minimalist way that I painted it. Part 4, the Undead Army. Continuing on with the theme of extremely large models, the second largest model that I painted this year was the big plastic dragon kit that Squidmar sent me. Thanks again to Emil for sending this over and being okay with how much I converted it and chopped it up before painting it. But basically my idea with this one was to create a big vampire bat dragon that I could use in my games of Ravenloft's D&D campaign. So I did a lot of fun custom sculpting on this. This was a really fun challenge for me as a sculptor. It's not something I often do anymore. And just so that it could be used for more than just D&D, I also gave this model a massive scenic base that would make it the right size to play as a proxy for the Revenant Draconith in Age of Sigmar, if I ever wanted to use it for that. Alongside this, I also painted up an army of undead spiders. These were from the Wargames Atlantic Spider Kit. Highly recommend that if you're looking for a lot of multi-part, very detailed spiders. These I also painted up for my D&D campaign mainly, but I decided to base them so that they would match the bases of my Cursed City models, just so that I would have a unified undead army to use in various games. So that is a total of 17 new models to add on to my undead army this year, to add on to the 13 models I already had painted for it. For 2026, my goal is to expand this undead army in some kind of way, maybe painting up more of the Cursed City models to expand my undead horde. But do you know what else I'd like to continue to expand into 2026? That's right, it's my website that I've built using this video's sponsor, Squarespace. Squarespace is the all-in-one website and hosting platform for all of your website needs, and it's super easy to use. Just pick from one of their fabulously designed pre-made templates and then customize things to your heart's content using their extremely intuitive drag and drop grid system. I've been using my current Squarespace site to host a gallery of my painted miniatures. I just updated it with my Dark Angels, all of my painting reference documents, as well as an online store, which has been really easy to maintain and has all of the options you would want for an online store. It accepts a variety of payment options, and you can sell pretty much anything you would want. Memberships, digital items, physical items, the works. So if you need a website, why not go to squarespace.com today for a free trial? And when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/Dana Howell for 10% off your very first purchase of a website or domain. And now back to our video. Part 5, Gaunt's Ghosts. One of the more fun projects I had the opportunity to do this year was unboxing and cataloging my brother-in-law's collection of vintage miniatures from the late 90s, early 2000s. I can't believe we're calling those vintage retro miniatures now, but it's been like 25 years. I guess he was clearing out his basement and he wanted to get rid of this stuff, and he was perfectly fine to let me have all of this stuff for the collection to be painted in the future on the channel perhaps. But he had one exception, one request, which he did want to hold on to, and that was his metal Gaunt's Ghosts models. So he asked if I could paint these up for him in exchange for the rest of the collection. So I did this for him, and it was really fun trying to paint in an older paint style. I had never had the experience of painting regular green and brown army guys before, and I have to say it was a lot of fun to paint something so fundamental to the wargaming experience. And once again, it was also just fun to paint something for someone else. I highly recommend painting at least one gift model per year. It's a very satisfying experience. Part 6, the X-Men. Longtime viewers might remember that I am a huge fan of Marvel Comics, and especially the mutant side of the Marvel Universe. And so this year I decided to paint up the X-Men starter box, which I've owned for a while now. I think I bought it on clearance a few years ago for Marvel Crisis Protocol. So these were a lot of fun to paint, but unfortunately I couldn't think of a good hook or angle to make it into a full video for the channel. These days, I would probably just document the process and put it up on Patreon or in the YouTube membership section as a sort of unpolished bonus video, which is what I've been doing with any of this footage recently. But anyway, this was just a fun little project to do as a palette cleanser from other projects this year. In the background, I have been trying to paint up a few Marvel models every year, just to slowly complete my backlog, as I have actually amassed quite a collection of Marvel miniatures over the years, mostly because I buy them when they go on clearance. So hot tip, if you are interested in the Marvel game but you don't want to pay the really expensive prices for the models, this is the sort of game that goes on sale at least once a year. I've bought the majority of my collection for like 75% off, I would say. At least 60% off. So you can get a lot of these figures for really cheap. If you wait around and just look at your local stores, they often go on sale. So yeah, at this point, I think I own about 50 Marvel models and I've painted about 30 of them. They're really great models. They're really fun to paint just if you want to paint a character that you like. But I also tried out the game for the first time this year, which is something I've been really looking forward to. And for my impressions on the game, we just played a fun starter match between X-Men and Avengers, and I really liked it. I thought it was really, really different than a standard war game. I would say it definitely feels more like a board game than a traditional war game, but if you're interested in that sort of thing, if you like war games with a lot of cards and tokens, custom dice, things like that, and you really like Marvel, I think this game is definitely going to be for you. If you're not into either of those things, this game is probably not for you. So it's a very specific audience, but if you enjoy it, I think it does a great job at simulating each of the individual heroes' powers. Like when you're playing Cyclops, you have to aim his beam to hit as many people as possible. It's very thematic, very... Sorry, I'll stop gushing about it. But it's there if you want to play it. Highly recommend it. Part 7, The Dark Angels. While all of the other projects I painted this year were super fun and satisfying, I think my favorite wargaming experience from the year was getting immersed in the lore of the Dark Angels and that inspiring me to kit bash and paint an entirely new army for my collection. Of course, this is also the most recent project that I finished, so I'm probably a little bit biased, but I would say this was my favorite project that I did this year. There's just something really fun about painting a classic Space Marine army and like researching them and getting everything right. while still expressing yourself through the blank spaces in the lore. I don't usually care that much about the official lore of games, and I like to make up a lot of my own stuff, but it was fun to give it a try to sort of work within the framework of the existing lore. It was a lot like writing, or I guess painting, fan fiction, which was quite fun. This army also really changed my view on how I want to paint armies going forward from now on. As well, I started out the year of the opinion that the best way to paint any army is a single unit at a time. I really liked how painting this one big batch up front, the sort of meat and potatoes of the army, makes them all feel really cohesive, like a single artwork on a canvas, rather than a bunch of smaller artworks which all vaguely match each other. And now that the heavy lifting is done, I can add on a unit or two as I feel like it or as I get inspired, and expand the army at my own pace over the next few years. It's also really nice to now own and feel passionate about a Space Marine army. That's a sentence I never thought I would say, as now whenever a new starter set comes out, I can sort of participate in the hype and discuss what I might convert all the new Marines into. So it's fun just to feel included in the sort of main faction. I don't know, you get the idea. In fact, I've already started building and customizing my next batch of Dark Angels, which is mostly made up of heroes. I'll probably slowly paint these over the next few weeks, and if there's anything interesting that happens, I'll make videos about those interesting bits. And I've also started reading even more Dark Angels novels, so you can expect Dark Angels thoughts on the channel going forward into the new year. Part 8, miscellaneous stuff and final conclusions. So altogether, including a few miscellaneous figures that I painted this year, such as these objective counters, this combi lieutenant, a few figures for D&D, some Moria goblins, which I painted during Goblin Week. In total, I painted about 130 miniatures this year, which is a massive leap from 2024, in which I think I only finished painting about 50 models total. In fact, I will now come clean and let you know that one of my secret goals for 2025 was to paint over 100 models when I realized how few I'd painted in 2024. But the real question is, did I paint more than I bought this year? And the answer is almost. In general, I felt I was really well behaved this year as far as miniatures spending goes. I mostly only bought paints and supplies, along with a few boxes of miniatures that I wanted for certain projects. Overall, by my count, I purchased only 81 miniatures this year, a lot of which I painted, so I feel like I did pretty good as far as buying stuff versus painting stuff. But then I threw all that away when Black Friday came and I bought this massive box, which I think contains like 80 miniatures. So I failed to paint more than I bought this year, but it was just such a good deal. I couldn't pass it up. It was like 40% off, and this is definitely one of those boxes I've been meaning to buy for a while. So when I saw it for such a steep discount during Black Friday, it was impossible to say no. If you're curious about my plans for that box, my goal is to convert a bunch of the Stormcast into Dark Angels or Dark Angels retainers. But mainly the reason that I bought this box was because I really want to try out the Spearhead game mode that everyone's been raving about for the past year and a half. I just wanted to get in on the hype and be able to give you my thoughts on the Spearhead game mode. And it seemed like this was the most cost-effective way to get 2 spearheads and all the components I would need to play the game. If I enjoy playing Spearhead, I'm also thinking I might like to upgrade some of my old AOS armies in 2026 so that they all have spearheads. A few of them are just a few models away from being spearheads, so very tempted to do that in 2026. But yeah, that's about it. So I purchased about 150 miniatures during the year, and I painted 130. That's not bad. It's just a few miniatures off from having painted the same amount that I bought. Definitely the closest I've ever come in any previous year, I would say. So that's about it. My goals for 2026 are to continue painting for my existing factions in games that I like, try out some new ones when I have the opportunity, and to continue painting. I'm going to try to paint the same amount that I painted this year or more. I'm just going to try not to paint less than 130 this year. I'm not setting any really out there goals of like painting double again, but I think for a relatively slow painter like myself, 130 is a good goal to paint in a single year, and I'm definitely going to try to buy less than that. We'll try our best. I also wanted to say a huge thank you to all of you for your support this year. It's getting harder and harder to do YouTube as a full-time job. I know you've probably heard this from a lot of the creators you watch, so I really appreciate all of your donations over on Patreon or YouTube memberships. It's really helped me a lot this year. This week, I would especially like to thank patron Lack of Foresight Gaming, who I believe has their own YouTube channel as well. Thanks to all of you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.